Hi there, my name is Katia. I graduated the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles in 2011 and to date have over $150,000 worth of student debt. I have decided to create a content series in the form of a podcast and video to record my experiences and hopefully bring on others to share what it's like to be under the thumb of insurmountable student debt. I hope that what you see and hear imbues you with insight and solidarity for those of us suffering under a crippled educational and financial system, and maybe someday hope for those of us who deserve student debt relief. So, thanks for being here, and now that I've said all of that, let's get started. Hi. My name's Katia. I am 35 years old. I graduated the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles, July 2011. The Art Institute was a for-profit college, and I've worked at Disney, I've worked at BuzzFeed. I'm currently working at CoreLogic, which is a fintech company. I like to think that I make a decent wage, a respectable living. And today's date is June 7th, 2022. And I just noticed that one of my student loans hit 11% recently within the past month. Last time I checked, it was at 10.75%. And I remember in February of 2022 hearing about the AG settlement. And what that was a whole grip of attorney generals across the country came together and took Navient to court, or Sally Mae, or whatever you want to call it, for predatory loan practices. And there was a great deal of us that went to for-profit colleges like the Art Institute that felt like there was hope in that. And so we were told to wait and wait and wait. And sometime around April, we started to see the first postcards come out, and in May. So finally I called Navient and I said, hey, I just wanted to know, am I going to have my student loans forgiven? And they said no. There's a bunch of qualifying factors for being part of the 2022 settlement. It had to be loans that were taken out during a certain period. They had to be a certain type of loan. They had to be for schools that were like a non-profit or for-profit school, so like a Corinthian or an ITT Tech or a DeVry. There's a whole slew of schools. Art Institute, which was the school that I went to, was one of them. And I thought maybe there was hope because I hit all of those check boxes. But they said no, because you didn't default in the last 11 years. So you're not forgiven. And I said, okay. And I thanked the person for their time. And I hung up the phone. And I remember I got Del Taco for lunch that day. And I just thought, oh, I'm just going to make a quick phone call. And I got back onto the street with the now cold Del Taco. I drove home knowing that I would not have my student loans forgiven. To date, I have in private student loans $113,300 $390 in private loans. The interest rate, that's at 11%. That balance is at $34,923.55. I have 40,000 that are at 9%. I've got like 16,000 at 8%, and then maybe another 20,000 at 3 to 6%. Soon to be 7. And then I also have 30,000 in federal loans, which are currently in forbearance or deferment or something, because I applied for borrower's defense back in February, and I cited abusive tactics by the Art Institute. You know, they promised us that we would get great jobs fresh out of college, that they would be high-paying jobs, and that, you know, the debt that we're taking on in college, it was fine because you're going to pay it off. You're going to be making tons of money in this industry. There's tons of jobs out there for you guys. And all you got to do is just go through our program, and it's going to be lit. It's going to be great. You're going to make so much money. The loans aren't going to be an issue. But I don't understand how, with these loans, like, I'm supposed to pay them off by 2045, I think. 2045. I'll be in my 50s. And 10 years after that, I'll be of retirement age. So this 700, 800, 900, 1200 that I pay every month, that should be money going towards my 401k. That could be money that I put aside for a rainy day. And it's not going to happen. And the thing that amazes me the most is I feel so blessed. And I feel like out of everyone that I went to school with, I made it. I graduated. I interned at Disney within like a month of graduating. I worked at Disney for several years. And then I was unemployed for over a year. And then I worked at a startup that crushed me. And then I was laid off again. And then I worked at BuzzFeed, which was amazing. But of all the jobs I've had in a decade, so few paid me well and treated me well. It felt like a pound of flesh for every job that I took on, with very few exceptions. And I feel so blessed to have a job now, currently, and have had a job for the last 10 years. And to say I'm a very successful creative professional. I've worked on huge projects. I've made a very respectable income. How is it that it's so hard for me? I can't imagine what it's like for all of the people that dropped out, people that couldn't take out any more loans in 2008 when like the recession hit, and like people that graduated that work at Starbucks. And there's plenty of people that I know that I graduated with that are not working in our field and can't boast the salary that I have. How are they able to function? I just don't understand. So since February, somehow on Facebook, I'm connected by a couple of, maybe like a dozen students. People have been coming to me for advice, and I'm like, I'm 35, but I'm like not an adult. Like, I don't have my life together, and I feel like I'm just keeping it together barely, and I can't possibly give anyone financial or legal advice. I feel like fresh out the gate, I was sandbagged by this debt, and I just can't possibly give anyone advice, but what I can tell them is, what I find on the internet about the Attorney General's Navient suit and the settlement, and advocate for people to apply for borrower's defense and share the documents that I uploaded to borrower's defense in hopes that maybe it'll help someone else out. And in the last several months, it's been, should I do a podcast? Should I do something? I feel like, how can I possibly put myself out there? Like, am I going to get scrutinized for my spending habits? Like, is it okay that I went to Japan for my honeymoon? Is it okay that I complain even though I have a house? I feel so much shame for my success. And I don't know. People told me that if I do this podcast, they'll listen. So thank you. Thank you for listening and for being here. And I hope that maybe someday we can all get out from under this insurmountable, painful amount of debt. Because it's just too much. It's too much to live paycheck to paycheck. It's too much to look at the $1,000 that I have in my savings right now and go, I have $1,000 in my savings. That's cool. Oh man, I'm totally rambling. The silence is so loud when it comes to where do you begin to describe the hopelessness and this feeling of nothing I do will matter. No matter how much money I throw at this problem, it won't go away. It's just this never-ending, uncomprehendable debt. It's just, like a house payment. You usually have like a fixed rate, and you kind of know what you're getting yourself into because you're kind of an adult. You're like usually in your late 20s or you're in your 30s and you've saved some money and you're like, I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to take time and I'm going to, save up and do the down payment. And I know what I'm getting myself into. I'm in a place in my career where I feel established and I have a partner and I don't feel alone and I feel educated in my decision making. Student debt is like, you spend your whole life as a 90s, 80s, 90s kid being told, all you got to do is go to college and you're going to have a great job and you can be president and things are going to be amazing. And then you do that. You go to middle school, you get good grades. You go to high school, you get good grades. And you go to college and you get a degree and then you graduate and you make tons of money and you could do it all and it's great. But that's not what happened to us. This generation that I'm from. 9/11 happened my freshman year. And you know what? People are always asking me, are you okay? And it's like, man, I haven't been okay since freshman year. I haven't. Because 9/11 was freshman year. And I watched the upperclassmen go to Iraq and Afghanistan. And I went to college with people that had served a tour or two in Iraq or Afghanistan. And never mind being a child of neglect and abuse, and my parents weren't around, and no one told me that I was supposed to take my SATs or my ACTs. Nobody told me that junior college was an option. I was too busy just trying to not be home around an alcoholic. And I started college because my dad, when he finally got involved in my life again, said, you either work or you go to school. And I had just lost my full-time job. And I said, I guess I'm going to school. And I want to do art. And the Art Institute seems like the place to go. And money's no option when it comes to school, right? Like, you go, you get the degree, you graduate, and then that's it. No one can take your education away from you. Nobody told me that they were taking away my independence or the hope I would have for a retirement when I was taking on these loans. Nobody sat me down and explained to me that doing study abroad, while it was enriching to be at the Louvre every week, there was a cost to that. And it was compounded interest. And it was, the cost of housing, because I didn't want to live in an abusive home. It was going to cost me as an adult. Nobody told me that. Nobody sits down with you in high school and says, this is how interest rates work. This is how subsidized interest works. And the loan officers at the college, I remember sitting there signing my life away so that I could go to school and telling them, well, I want to do animation because there's a bit more drawing classes. That's where my head was at. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? I want to draw. I want to make people happy. I'm not thinking about subsidized or unsubsidized loans and what the difference is of a fixed rate, or thinking about my credit. The credit, like, what credit do you have when you're an 18-year-old person, 19, 20-year-old person? You're a child. You can't even drink alcohol. But here we are taking out tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of loans, and you can't even explain to anybody what this loan is or what the terms are. You're just promised, hey, after like 4 or 5 years of this, you're going to have a great career and it's not going to matter. And I took them at face value because I didn't know. And my parents, who are immigrants, they certainly didn't know. And all of this is to say, I still have it so much better than so many people in this country. I just don't understand how did we let it get to be this bad, to be this far? How was I so ignorant? How was I so unprepared to enter adulthood with so much debt? So the hope is I will do this podcast and I'll share my journey, and maybe people will be willing to come on and talk to me about their journey, and we can maybe all figure it out together. Or at the very least, there's documentation of the suffering and the pain of what it's like, so that people down the line, when they're making decisions, lawmakers, or even just kids coming out of college, you can see the decisions we made and you go, hell no. Not for me, thanks. Maybe you'll go to a junior college. Maybe you can convince your parents to save. Maybe when you're 16, ask your parents to open up a credit card for you so that at least if you do have to get student loans, you could have good credit so that at least you have a better percentage rate. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But it can't be this, because this is not sustainable. For someone to be as successful as me, to constantly be worried about the $700, $800, $1,200 payment that I have to make every month just in student loans. Not to mention the cost of housing in LA and electricity and water. Just to drive to my office, which is in Irvine, it's an hour and a half. The cost of gas. Like, I don't just... It's unbelievable. How are we doing this? Why are we doing this? How did we get here? I'm nowhere near intelligent enough to be able to speak on how things should be different. But what I can say is, as someone living it, it's crippling. It's crippling. I think that's enough for today. I will see you in the next one, I guess. Goodbye. Good luck.